I've lived alone long enough that the normal creaks of my apartment don't bother me anymore. The building is old, pre-renovation pipes, warped wooden frames that expand and contract with temperature changes, and a landlord who insists the character is part of the charm. Most nights, it's just me, the hum of the AC, and whatever podcast I fall asleep to. But last Tuesday, sometime around 12:40 a.m., I woke up because someone knocked on my door. It wasn't loud. 3 slow taps, almost cautious. The kind of knock a polite person gives when they're checking if you're awake. At first, I thought I dreamed it, but the second set came. Same rhythm, same softness. My brain flickered fully online. Nobody visits me, especially not at that hour. I stayed in bed and listened. Silence. I finally got up, my pulse thumping behind my ears, and walked toward the living room. The peephole lens is distorted and cloudy, so all I saw was a long shadow cast by the hallway lights. No movement, no breathing, just empty corridor. I almost opened the door. Almost, thinking maybe a neighbor needed help. But then something stopped me cold. From the other side, someone whispered, "Please, let me in." I stumbled backward. The voice didn't sound desperate. It sounded practiced, like someone rehearsing a line they'd said before. I swallowed hard and forced my voice out. "Who are you?" No answer. Just another soft knock. I backed into my bedroom, locked the door, and called security. They said they'd send someone to check the floor. 10 minutes later, my phone rang again. The guard said the hallway was empty. No signs of anyone. No footprints. No disturbances. I barely slept. The next morning, on my way out, something caught my eye. A faint smear on my door at about head height, almost like someone had pressed their forehead against it for a long time. I touched it. Sticky. Not blood, not paint. Something else. The guard brushed it off, saying it was probably residue from cleaning chemicals. But I know what I felt. That wasn't any residue. I tried to shake it off. Work distracted me for most of the day, and by the time I got home, I'd convinced myself it was just some drunk person who'd wandered the wrong floor. Then, as I stepped into my apartment, I noticed something that froze me in place. My living room curtains, closed, completely shut. I never close them, ever. They face a courtyard wall. No sunlight, no privacy concerns. They've been open since I moved in. And there on the floor, right beneath the window, was a small, dark scuff mark. A footprint. Bare. Heel to toe. Human. As if someone had been standing there, watching my building before drawing the curtains shut. My first thought was absurd, but instinctive. Someone had been inside. But I never leave my door unlocked. I checked the lock anyway. Solid. Untouched. No signs of force. Still, the footprint was real. Too real. That night I pushed a chair against the door, left every light on, and sat awake until dawn. But the worst part wasn't the knock, or the whisper, or even the footprint. It was the message I found the next morning, slid under my door on a scrap of torn paper. I didn't go to work the next day. I couldn't. I kept staring at that scrap of paper like it might start moving if I blinked too long. You looked right at me. I replayed the night over and over, trying to remember if I had seen anything at the peephole. A shape? A blur? A shadow? But the truth was worse. I didn't remember seeing anything at all. The hallway had been empty. So how could I have looked at him? By noon, paranoia had me tearing through my apartment. I checked under the bed, inside the wardrobe, behind the water heater panel, places so small a child would struggle to fit into. I even unscrewed the vent cover. Dust. Rust. Nothing. But the feeling wouldn't leave. That pressure on the back of your neck when someone stands too close. That sense your eyes are being followed. At around 3 p.m., I heard it. A soft thump inside the wall. Then another. Then a dragging sound, like bare feet sliding against drywall. I pressed my ear against the living room wall. Thump. Drag. Slow. Heavy. Moving horizontally. My breath caught in my throat as the sound passed behind the electrical outlet, then faded into the direction of my bedroom. The units in this building share walls, but my bedroom wall faces the maintenance shaft, the narrow vertical crawl space that houses plumbing access. Nobody lives in there. Nobody should be able to move in there. I called the landlord. He swore it was thermal expansion or rodents. I told him rodents don't walk upright. He didn't come. That night I pushed my dresser against my bedroom wall, more for my sanity than for safety. Around 1 a.m., the dragging returned. Only this time the footsteps stopped directly behind the dresser, right where my head would have been if I'd been sleeping. I held my breath. Silence. Then a faint, raspy whisper came through the wall. Open. My body went rigid. I didn't move, I didn't make a sound, but the whisper came again, clearer, like someone's mouth was pressed right against the drywall. Open the door. I stumbled out of the room, slamming the door shut behind me. My hands were shaking so hard I dropped my phone twice before managing to dial security. Same answer as last time. We'll send someone up. Same result. No one there. They must have thought I was losing it. At 4 a.m., exhausted and running on adrenaline, I noticed something new. A thin line of plaster dust along the baseboard, as if the wall had been scraped from the other side. I crouched down and looked closer. There were small indentations in the drywall, 5 of them. Long, shallow, curving downward. Finger marks. Someone had run their hand down the inside of my wall. I barely slept. At sunrise, I checked my front door and froze again. Slid under it was another scrap of paper. Same torn edges, same handwriting. You heard me this time. That was the moment the fear became something else. Something colder. This wasn't random. This wasn't a drunk stranger or a prank or a hallucination. Whoever he wasn't just watching. He was learning. Learning how to move quietly. Learning where I slept. Learning how I reacted. And worst of all, learning that I was listening. By the 3rd day, I wasn't even pretending to function. I stayed home with every light on, sitting in the living room with my back against the wall opposite my bedroom, not the wall where I'd heard the footsteps. I kept thinking about those finger marks, the dragging, the whisper that wasn't desperate, but patient. I didn't want to be in the apartment anymore, but I was also terrified of leaving it empty. Like, if I stepped out for even a moment, he'd decide that tonight was the night he stopped knocking and actually came inside. Around noon, I heard something metallic drop inside the maintenance shaft. A clink, a roll, then silence. That small sound did something to me. I snapped. I grabbed my shoes, my keys, and I went straight to the building manager's office downstairs. I didn't care how insane I sounded. I demanded they open the maintenance access immediately. The manager sighed, clearly thinking I was overreacting, but after enough arguing, he finally got the on-call maintenance worker, a guy named Carlos, to meet me in the basement where the main panels were. He walked me to a locked metal door I'd never noticed before. "This leads to the vertical shaft," he said. "Nobody goes in unless a pipe bursts." "Someone's in there," I told him. My voice wasn't shaking anymore. It was flat, dead calm. "Open it." He hesitated, but eventually unlocked the door. The smell hit instantly. Stale dust, old metal, and something else underneath. Something damp. The crawl space was narrow, barely 2 feet wide, with pipes and wiring running up the walls like exposed ribs. A faint draft slipped through from somewhere above, making the hanging wires sway slightly. Carlos stepped inside first. I followed, even though every cell in my body told me not to. We climbed the metal rungs bolted into the wall, rising through the dark shaft level by level. The walls were covered in decades of grime, but about halfway up, I saw it. A clean streak. Like a body had been pressed against the surface and dragged upward. "Stop," I whispered. "Look." Carlos paused. He shined his flashlight on it, his eyebrows knitted together. Then higher up, more streaks and smudges and prints. Human prints. Bare feet, hands, elbows, knees, as if someone had been climbing inside the shaft for a long, long time. "What the hell?" he muttered. We kept ascending until we reached my floor. When I saw the back of my maintenance panel, a thin metal plate with 4 screws, my stomach dropped. The metal was scratched. Deeply. Hundreds of tight, jittery gouges around the edges, like fingers scraping for leverage, trying to pry it open. Carlos leaned close. "It looks like—" He stopped talking, because both of us heard it. A slow inhale. From the other side of the panel. Right inside my wall. I froze. Carlos froze. The sound was so soft, but unmistakably human. A breath drawn through a dry throat. Then a whisper came through the metal. "Don't leave." Carlos shot backwards so fast he nearly missed a rung. "Nope, nope, I'm done, I'm done." He started descending immediately. I didn't blame him. I followed, my entire body trembling. When we reached the basement, Carlos locked the panel door behind us with shaking hands. I expected him to call the police, to alert the building, to do something. Instead, he looked at me with wide, terrified eyes and said, "I'll file a report in the morning. For now, just don't go back up there, please." But my apartment was up there. All my things, my documents, my life. I left the building with nothing but my wallet and keys. I checked into a cheap hotel that night, too drained to think. I slept with the TV on and every lamp lit. I didn't hear anything. No knocking, no dragging, no whispering. Just silence. The next morning, building security called. My stomach dropped when I answered. "Sir, you need to come back. Something happened." I returned, heart pounding, expecting police tape, a crowd, something awful. Instead, I found my front door wide open. The screws from the maintenance panel in my bedroom wall were scattered on the floor. The panel itself was on the carpet, and the dresser I'd shoved against that wall, pushed aside. From the inside. Finger streaks, white with plaster dust, ran along the edge of my bed. And on my pillow, a new torn scrap of paper. The same handwriting, just 7 words. "You left before I could come in." I moved out that day. The landlord claims the shaft is empty, that nobody could survive in there, that the fingerprints found were not conclusive. But some nights, when this hotel gets quiet, I swear I hear it again. A soft drag, a slow breath, a careful, patient knock, like he's still looking for me, like he knows I can hear him.